Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be discussing this video that I saw on YouTube here a while back of can a wind-powered car go faster than the wind? And then the follow-up to this was a physics professor bet me $10,000 I'm wrong. I watched this video many times, kind of struggled with it myself. I've seen a few videos on how it's possible. But today I wanted to post basically a low-tech, without a lot of animations, explanation as to why this is actually possible. So my goal is to try to get through this in maybe 5, at most 10 minutes explanation. So what I want to do is I want to start out giving you an intuitive explanation, so where you have no doubt in your mind why this works. So a lot of people, have tried to explain it. They've used mathematics and that sort of thing, and I walk away from the explanations not really feeling satisfied. So I just want to kind of get through this quickly so you can see how this is obvious that this can be done. The first thing I want to do is I want to start out with just a simple system. I'm going to start out with a pulley system. So let's suppose that you have a pulley and it's hooked to a weight like this, and say the weight weighs, I don't know, 10 kilograms, something like this. I think everyone, that's familiar with kind of the basic fundamentals of physics understands that you can pull up on this rope here with a 5 kilogram force, and it's going to lift this 10 kilogram force. But I'm not really interested in the forces. What I want you to understand about this is basically the movement that's involved. So the price you pay for this mechanical advantage is for every 1 meter that you move this rope up at this point, you only move the weight up a half a meter, because the mechanical advantage is 2 to 1. So it takes you twice as much rope to pull this up if you're pulling it by hand to move this this weight up. But if you think about it, you can actually use this to your advantage. If you were to turn this over to where you have, one end of it basically hooked into the ground, and you have the rope coming around like this, and then you have it hooked to a weight. If you have your pulley system set like this, and you pull up on the pulley, if this weighs 10 kilograms, it's going to require a force of 20 kilograms pulling up to move this weight up. However, what you get out of this is you get, a movement, a mechanical advantage. So for every 1 meter that you pull up on this particular weight, on the pulley right here, the weight itself moves upward 2 meters. Okay, so how does this relate to anything? Well, what I want to do is give you an explanation of how it's just obvious where you could actually build a device that can travel faster than the wind. So imagine that you rotated your pulley system to look like this, okay? And so that you had your pulley here, and connected to this pulley you had, I'll just have a sail. I'm not an artist or anything, but you have a sail that you have hooked to the pulley. This is, hooked to the ground over here. But here you have a cart, some type of vehicle that you've made. Here's your wheels and that sort of thing. Well, you can see that if the wind is moving, in this direction, say 10 miles per hour, and you get this sail actually moving 10 miles an hour, your cart is going to go 20 miles per hour. So I think that this is a very intuitive explanation of a device that you could actually build, where there's no question that you could build something where you have a vehicle that's going faster than the sail itself. Now, I know what a lot of people will say. They'll say, well, yeah, but this will only work till you run out of rope. Okay? But if you think about it, you could just have a bunch of these in series. So you could have, this whole device, and then when it got to the end of the rope, comes undone and it attaches to a whole new setup. So you could do, it's almost like train tracks or something like that. And this is assuming obviously that you don't have any frictional losses in your rope and the weight of your rope and that sort of thing. But at least conceptually you could see where you could build a device, and you say, well, yeah, but eventually you run out. Well, with what they're doing with the Blackbird, you're eventually going to run out of desert, or you're going to run out of road or something. But I think this explanation makes it intuitive how you could at least build the device. Now, one thing that I also want to talk about is before they kind of gave an explanation of how you could travel, into the wind or with the wind, and you could cut across it so you could travel faster than the wind. But they don't really give a good explanation as to why. And when you look at videos, at least in my opinion, I didn't see a really good explanation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, give an example of where you're a skier and you're being pulled along, with the ski boat. I think anyone that's ever, seen skiers know that you can move side to side. And when you move side to side, obviously you have to travel faster than the boat for at least a period of time, because the rope is going to take up slack. So if you come over here, and you're being pulled along by the boat, from the period of time it took you to get from this position to this position, you had to travel faster than the boat. So if you think about, some setup like this, what you could do as a skier is, you're just being pulled along, and then you move around, and if there was, say, a line of boats, you could just come over here. And as soon as you got to this point right here, now you just let go of this line and you grab onto this line. And then you come around, and basically you slingshot yourself just from boat to boat, okay? So I know what you're thinking. It's like, yeah, but you'd have to have, a lot of boats to do this, and that's kind of like cheating. But it's not really, because if you think about the wind we always draw as kind of just a lot of arrows showing what direction that you're being pulled in or being pushed in, or the direction of the wind. So if you think of each one of these arrows, as just basically a bunch of particles of air that are moving. If you think of each one of those just as a boat and of itself, then you can kind of imagine that, as a skier, you're just being pulled from basically, one boat to the next. And so each one of these, each one of these boats can just actually represent the wind. So, I don't think it takes a whole lot of imagination to really kind of understand that. So when you jump in the wind and you cut across it, basically that's what you're doing. You're just grabbing on to this current kind of set of particles that your cell is grabbing onto. So I think that this explanation kind of explains why you can travel faster than the wind if you cut across it, because you're just basically going at an angle and it's pulling you, and you're just jumping from, say, air particle to air particle. So finally, what I want to do is to use these concepts to kind of explain how it is that this particular vehicle, the Blackbird, is able to travel faster than the wind. So the way I like to think about it is when the Blackbird is at rest and you have the wind pushing on the Blackbird, the boundary conditions of the Blackbird and of where the wind and the kind of the wind boundary is the structure itself. So if you're holding the brakes and it's not actually moving and this propeller isn't turning, the boundary of where the wind actually interacts with the Blackbird is the actual structure itself, okay? But as this starts moving, what happens is this propeller starts to turn, and it creates, I'll call it a plume, that kind of maybe something that looks like this. So what happens is the boundary conditions have changed. So the boundary conditions aren't now just the structure of the Blackbird. The new boundary is this plume that has been created. So I like to kind of think of it as kind of like an envelope, to where within this kind of plume or within this kind of bubble, that you're not just pushing the Blackbird itself, you're not just pushing the structure, you're kind of pushing this capsule around the Blackbird. So you're pushing, you're pushing that whole plume. And so within the plume, the blackbird is able to kind of move within the plume. So if you think about it, you've created maybe something that looks like this, and the blackbird, it's an ugly blackbird, but the blackbird is able to move, within the plume itself. Okay, and then obviously as it gets faster and faster, this plume, is going to get larger and larger. And so, like I said, you're not just pushing on the blackbird itself, you're pushing on the plume, and the blackbird is able to kind of move within that plume, because these rotors are rotating, and they're reducing this air pressure, and actually I guess they're increasing it, and you're pushing on the plume itself. So I know that that's not a very technical explanation, but I think when you put these three concepts together, the pulley system, and then you understand how you're actually able to cut back and forth through the wind to go faster than the wind, then you can kind of understand that these rotors are able to travel faster than the wind because they're at an angle, and that they create this pressure system that the wind is pushing on. And because the wind has basically an infinite amount of, I'll call them pushers, you're able to just constantly utilize that. So, at this point you have this plume, but when you move forward, you've got this plume, and it's almost like a new day, a new second, a new, second or minute has passed, and it doesn't care about what happened 5 seconds ago, that you're only worried about this particular moment that the wind is pushing you in the plume. So anyway, this is my very rough explanation for how this vehicle works and how it's actually able to travel faster than the wind. So I hope this gives you some insights that maybe the other videos didn't give you.